So we're back from the Chagim, back from Yom Tov, and we're still holding in Hilchos Basar בחלב Siman Tzadik Hey towards the end. We'll do Sif Dalet today. B'ezrat Hashem, Thursday we'll finish the Siman. The last few Seifim are pretty simple, straightforward. Sif Dalet is very interesting because it's quite relevant too. Dealing with soap and with detergent. But before we immerse ourselves into Sif Dalet, perhaps just a quick review of some of the highlights of Siman Tzadik Hey, an important Siman dealing with not bar not. The concept of not bar not, which really means a tam which has been diluted. But it can be diluted in various ways. We said the typical way is for it to have entered the water, the liquid, and then into the keli, and then come out again. So obviously by going through the various steps, various stages, something happens to it. Tam ke'ikar, by now we know very well that tam is of concern. Tam requires bittul. But tam can become a non-issue if it's diluted enough without bittul. If it's diluted somehow in the process of not bar not, which basically says the tam is no longer the original tam, it's a weaker tam. Or the other possibility, which we'll talk about today a little bit more, is that this original tam, which is still there, quite a bit of it, not even batel, but it's a tam pogum. It's no longer a tasty tam. So without having anything to do with bittul, we have various scenarios where the tam can become a non-issue. So that's why, when you get a shaila, when you're looking into a situation which concerns tam, there are many facets to it. There are many things to analyze before we render an opinion, as if to this treif, whether we can eat it, whether it's lechatchila, or whether it's b'diavad. Because sometimes something may be a chumrah. We may be machmir, especially if you follow the Ramah when it comes to not bar not. So there are certain chumras, and there are certain minhagim, which is even less than a chumrah in a sense. It's only a minhag, to do certain things. You made rice in a fleshike pot, but there was no meat in there. It's a par of rice. Could you have it on a milk plate? So that would be a question of not bar not, and that would be a question of whether you can do it lechatchila b'diavad, and what the minhag is. So some people, of course, have the minhag to eat that, even though you were allowed to eat. You're allowed to have a cup of milk, a glass of milk, after eating that rice, because the rice is not really a fleshike rice per se, right? But you should preferably put that rice into a fleshike plate. You cooked it in a fleshike pot.
According to the Ramah.
Yeah.
Also.
No. Not necessarily. In other words, you wouldn't be required to do that. Whether it's better, of course it's better. The major difference would not be so much regarding the plates, it would be regarding can you have it at the same time, can you have milk with the rice or not, or milk dish. That would be more the question between the Sfaradim and Ashkenazim, Legabe not bar not. We spoke about lechatchilas and b'diavad. What is a b'diavad called? Is a b'diavad meaning, it's after the fact, it's already cooked in that pot, or is b'diavad only in a sense where once the milk is already mixed with the rice? According to the Ramah, that would be a b'diavad. Because even the Ramah says, I may not go by the poskim who hold not bar not 100%, because I want to be machmir, like the Shita one machmir. Nonetheless, that's only lechatchila. Even the Ramah says b'diavad, it's okay. Even the Ramah holds not bar not b'diavad, it's okay.
And the Shach says, and the Chaber says b'diavad, it's not to cook it.
Not to cook it, yeah, very good. Yeah, and even the Shach says, the Mechaber himself, he wants to bring a raya from elsewhere, that the Mechaber himself would hold that b'diavad means not that you can go ahead now and do it intentionally with kavana that you're going to be eating that with milk. Cook that rice in. You're going to be eating it with milk. Just do yourself a favor and make that rice in a parv pot or in a milchik pot. If you know in advance you're going to do all that, why get into trouble?
So the b'diavad, according to the Shach, would have two different meanings, the Chaber or the Ramah.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, right. Because apparently they're talking about very different stages in the process. In the whole sugya of not bar not, where it's learned from and how it's understood, we also have various shitas. Where does it apply? Does it apply only in olu? If one of them is hot, like hot fish, putting it on on a cold plate. That's called olu. It was there. It came up and it was placed, but not necessarily if it was roasted, and not necessarily if it was cooked, not necessarily if they're both hot. Right? There are various shitas. The most lenient shita holds that not barnat applies across the board. Regardless of the situation, you're always going to have a not barnat.
And in fact, the Mechaber says it.
Yeah, exactly.
And or roasted.
Right. In other words, once you have a tam going from one to the other, backwards and forwards, by the time it gets to the fish, which is a hetera here, we're talking about not the hetera. It's always an important point to keep in mind. Because nobody, for the most part, agrees that not the isura is something that we reckon with. Once something has become asur, no matter how many, what's the word for it?
Transfer.
No. I wanted to use something from the swings. No matter how many, what do you call that game that the girls play with the rope? Jump rope. No matter how many jumps, no matter what you do to it, not isura remains asur. Right? Because how do we explain it? Once it has become asur, it remains asur.
No. So it remains asur.
Right.
But if we're saying that the whole point of that barnat is that the taste to have an effect,
yes.
So one could conceive ostensibly
Right.
also argue that it remains asur, but it's an isur that is so weak that it has no longer the effect of asuring something.
Right. You could say that too at some point. But so with hetero, we're makel. You can give various explanations for it, but the bottom line is that you could be makel. It does not have the potential. That's the Ramban, right?
Did you put the Halacha Shulchan? That it doesn't have any anymore?
Yeah. There are various ways to understand why it's no longer effective, no longer has the potential to go further in Aser. Because you may have minute amounts of that tam being transferred over, yeah. But in order for it to combine, for Basar bechalv to come, remember they're both hetera right now, for them to combine and form a real bond, a molecular bond, a real bond, that doesn't seem to happen when it's several generations of tam, which is what not barnat is. No chemistry. Yeah.
This not isura doesn't apply.
Right. Uh-huh.
Even though the taste could be
Detectable. Yeah.
detectable because of the din of Edila that
Right.
that's basically it. What if it already was done?
What was done?
Something was cooked, basically treif pot. Then
Right.
we don't have shishim. We're not going to do that. Just like Ramah doesn't want to bring in that barnat.
Yeah, but what's the question? Therefore, what are you saying?
The question, I guess, is you have a treif pot, it's something
Right.
kosher soup in it.
Sure.
Yes, or even
Right.
it's not a benyo. I don't know. Or
Well,
maybe
no, it makes a difference. It's not a ben yomo, it's not a problem.
Then
Fine.
It's a ben yomo.
It's a ben yomo because we're
Right.
dealing here with this
Sure.
that's kosher. I'm trying to.
No.
I'm trying to get to the point where it's not that strong a thing.
What are you saying is perhaps something else. Maybe you were talking about a possibility,
Oh, okay, I'm
the
confusing.
possibility that can arise with both basar or chalav and iser, where somebody cooked water in the spot. You say, well, some of that water already got to the iser. There was a shtickle, as we say in Yiddish, hagala already to the pot. So therefore, whatever tam comes out is no longer the original tam, which I know how much it is, several ounces. That may be helpful with basar or chalav, according to some opinions. It's not helpful with insu because of Hanan,
According to the Ramah.
according to the Ramah, especially according to the Ramah.
But he
right.
had something else, I think. Let's
Yeah.
see if I can correct me if I'm wrong. I think he was saying, why do we say not barnat the Isra doesn't? It's because you're not mevatel Isra. But in a scenario where you would not be being mevatel,
Yeah.
but in a scenario where you would not be mevatel Isra lahatchila, so then not barnat should ostensibly also work the Isra. Because what's prevents it from work normally is that you're not mevatel Isra lahatchila.
Yeah, but that's
But by basar b'chalav you don't have an Isra.
Right.
So there it's not a problem, so you're not being mevatel Isra lahatchila.
Yeah.
But by an Isra you have a mevatel Isra lahatchila. So you're not allowed to intentionally do it.
Intentionally, that would be a
Pretty much
question
not
intentionally.
situation.
Sure.
So according to this, if this is what prevents there from being an not the Isura, Namely, that you're not allowed to intentionally bring about that situation, that if it came about by itself incidentally, there shouldn't be a problem with not barnat isra. That was, I think, his question.
There would not be a problem with...
It was my question.
There would not be a problem with bitul isra lechatchila, but it would still be a problem with the isura, being an isura regardless of what happened to it in the meantime. Because once we say it's usr, it's usr. In other words, the whole concept of not barnat being diluted does not apply to an isra. It applies to bittul. If you have the shishim requirements, fine. But to call this a weakened state of tam only exists by nois and tam of gam, perhaps.
Because 16.
That's not barnat.
Then it's not barnat. That's the halacha of bittul. So that's where not barnat is unique to hetera.
I think you can say that to make the point is the taste of the isra is weaker, but the effect of asari does not become weaker.
Yes, that's true. That's exactly it. It's a fact. It has become weak. I think no one will question that. But it has been usr all along. It will remain so.
And it's quite to asr.
In other words, we will not allow the leniency of not barnat to play a role in paskening a shaila. We will apply shishim if that is, of course, going to help us, and we definitely will apply noit in tam lefgam, which is a big help.
But is it actually true that in not the isura, that the main point is that this would be the battle isra, which we don't do?
Well, sure. Yeah, that's part of it, and that is why there's a question here of what can you do lechatchila and what can you do b'di'evet, in the assuming not barnat is okay, because it's not a real mevatel isur, because it's not an isur.
No. What prevents not barnat isura to work?
Oh, isura.
In contrast to not barnat hetera works, but not barnat isura doesn't work, because once you're dealing with an isur, your not barnat is already a middle of isur, the hatchila.
But it's not a question of whether there's bittul or not. We know that there's something there. We don't know how much, but even if there's a lesser amount, as long as we don't have the shishim requirements, we're not going to apply the leniency of calling it a second generation tam.
So that's very interesting.
Yeah.
So that's right.
It's a special.
By not barnat, where it doesn't help with the surah, you also don't have you don't have an isser of bittul isser lahatchila, because it's not going to work.
It's not going to work anyway, right? It's not going to work anyway. That's what I'm saying. It's not really. That's not really the main issue. Yeah. It remains an isser, and in hetera there is such a concept. We learned it from the Gemara with dogim she'olu b'ka'ara. That's the mekor. With fish, you had an example of fish that was hot fish, or however you interpret that Gemara, that was placed on a cold ke'ora. Whether the two of them are hot, whether does that apply to bishul too? We have the Rivan, we have the other mefor, the other Rishonim. They all hold a little bit differently. The vast majority, by the way, say that it applies across the board. The concept of nois and tam,
regardless if it's
hetero, even if it was cooked. There some shittas who hold no, cooking is better because there's three.
Because of the water.
Because the water is three not barnats. And some say just the opposite. Cooking is worse because that brings out all the time. It's stronger. Yeah. Interesting how the various Rishonim looked at the same sugya, right, and came up with different interpretations and understandings.
Yeah. Quick one running the vocabulary. Alu.
Yeah.
The word alu here comes from the idea of that a ke'ara was used for while serving food. Alu ala shulchan. The alu, I think, comes in. You see it often in context.
It's a unique lashon. That's why it's a little cryptic. That's part of why it's a little puzzling as to what is the intent here, what exactly happened. Pashup pshat means that you took them out from wherever they were and placed them into the ka'ara. And
that would be a more elegant way.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Anyway, once we had a little bit of a background of not barnat, we discussed an important Sif Gimel, which deals with dishes being washed together, Melicha and Fleishik. Very, very relevant. And from that we went on to dishwashers and the various problems that arise from using the same sink, the same dishwasher, the problems that can be. Obviously, not everybody can afford two dishwashers because that would be the best solution. But definitely two sinks in today's world is definitely not a luxury, something that really people should make an effort to have. It can solve a lot of problems. There's a difference, of course, between stainless steel sinks ceramic porcelain things for Pesach, this could be a problem. So in Sif Gimel, we had a problem with them all sitting in the same water. They were being washed with chamin shayat soletes bohen, hot water. Why is that important? Obviously, because kli sheni, we know by now, it's not mevashel. And if we knew that the hot water that we're dealing with here is a kli sheni, it would be less of an issue. Today's dishwashers are considered kli rishon. I think everybody holds like that. Even though at one time in the 60s, when it was first asked to Moshe Feinstein, I think it was in the 60s, there was that one possibility of perhaps that the waters are kli sheni too. And we explained last time why they may be kli sheni. Because even though they're very hot, depending where the heating element is. Because if the water is being heated somewhere else and then coming in dishwasher, no matter, even if they're very hot, there still would be a kli. So that was something to consider. Because there may be a possibility, if you really hold not by not 100% all the way, or at least b'di'evan according to the Ramah, that if melichiks and fleishik dishes were washed together, and I just had a recent child, somebody called me up about somebody making a mistake, putting something, I forgot all the details, involving putting melichiks and fleishiks in the same dishwasher. It was one item, I forget what material it was made out of, would be good to ask. Was it really together? Was it touching? Or was it not touching? Was it previously rinsed? Was any of it was it really dirty? Then we had a very interesting, by the way, diyun, you weren't here, about Melicha Kedishas in general, as the Aruch HaShulchan points this one out very nicely. He says, Melicha Kedishas, who even says they're Melichiks? When was in other words, we're talking about plates and cutlery, not pots and pans. The plates and cutlery, when was the last time you used it with a Kli Rishon? Okay? In other words, most of the time you're using it with cereal, with butter, with cheese. So even though you may have once upon a time mixed your coffee is already Kli Sheni or Shlishi, or mixed something else, but that was not a Ben Yoima. It would for sure be pogum by now. So if anything, if you have milk in those dishes, tam balua, you don't really have. That's within the last 24 hours, because what did you use it for? Cereal, pizza. You put a slice of pizza on it. The milk is sitting on the dough. The dough is on the plate. I mean, you see. So it is another consideration, especially when you're dealing with hefs and merubas. I mean, you got to consider everything. So in the dishwasher, we have detergent, which is what we're going to be speaking about in Sif Dalet now, which can make a big difference. A big difference. The detergent can make a difference. So obviously, we hold today, at the very, very least, that if you want to use it for the two, both fleishiks, definitely don't use it at the same time. Avoid all problems at all costs. You want to use it at separate times, you may be able to get away with it, depending on how you hold, who your rabbi is. But at the very least, you better have good detergent. At the very least, you better have those dishes clean. You want to make sure that there's no flesh pieces left where the filter is, because you may say, okay, no matter, it's pogum, whatever's left over. No, pogum does not apply to ba'in. Something that is there, ba'in, it didn't come pogum. What about the detergent? Oh, maybe not. We'll learn that today. Does the soap really make ba'in pogum? That's an interesting question. Does detergent make anything pogum? So that was the question in Siv Gimel, which very much aptly applies to dishwashers. And we had a machlokes with the Mechaber and the Ramah. Basically, the Ramah said, don't do it. The Mechaber says if you had them both together, it's okay. As long as there was no Shuman Dovak behind, there was no Be'in. But the Ramah said, Yesh Oisrim. Now, what's the pshat of Yesh Oisrim? Why Aser? Just because because you don't hold not by not? No, we know even the Ramah holds it b'di'evet okay. So but he says Yesh Oisrim. So we gave two explanations. And it's important to review these two explanations because it fits in a little bit into Sif Dalet too. One explanation was that they're actually touching each other. Then you don't have a knot by knot. When the kelim touch each other, there's no knot by knot. The second opinion held that it's not a matter of touching, even if they're not touching. What you have here is the waters coming out from the flesh. The water's coming out from the Melicha. They don't have a chance to become not bar not. By the time they all both come out, they meet. So they're already meeting before they can become not bar not and being. So here you wouldn't have the advantage of not bar not, and that's why the Ramah says yesh oisrin.
I don't understand that. The water touched the milchik plate. I mean, it wasn't going to the wall of the milchik plate.
Right.
The water touched the milk. So the taste that it now receives from the is the chayra already not.
No, not if they're touching. As the Taz brings down, why is it not like Dogim Sha'olu? The Shani Hocho here says it's different here. Shake'oro is nogos b'machvas. The ke'oros are touching the pan.
The two kelim are touching.
Right.
That was the first opinion.
That's the first opinion. V'nifla tam zelezeh v'tam sheni v'isura.
But I'm talking about opinion.
V'oid, כשהטעם הבייס של בוסר ושל חולף נכנס במים, מיד נאסרו המים. וחוזרים ואויסים הכאורס ומחבס. In other words, the tamim meet right away. You don't have a chance for each one to become a not bar not.
How is that different from the fish that has the meat?
No, here they're happening at the same time.
Well, because there's no pause?
There's no interval, right? No, there's no pause. Exactly. That's
so
the only reason.
It
Yeah.
doesn't have time to rest.
Right, that's the only reason. Yeah. So anyway, the Ramah just right, or the liquids immediately coming into touch. If you hold the second explanation has nothing to do with touching. The second is just that the liquids coming out from the two of them, the hot water coming out from both, the tam, immediately come together. So you have basar b'chalav coming together before they have a chance to becoming a not bar not chalav, a not bar not basar.
There was no time interval
between them. Yeah.
Meat taste meat.
No, clear rishon. Right, only clear rishon, right. Right.
At least you can't release. Okay.
Exactly. It wouldn't at least be able to do both pe'ulais, at the very least, right? Mafli and mafli, yeah.
Because most people do a bucket already.
Right,
No,
You get to the water somehow.
yeah.
It's already ashamed.
You're right, it could be, depending on the circumstances. We spoke about a possibility of irui, hot water on them, versus klisheni, versus klisheni. This would only be a problem for the most part if it's a clear rishon. He only says b'chamin sheyatz sheledes bohen. Yeah, usually, yeah. What's interesting, however, is that the Ramah adds one more point, then we'll go to Sif Dalet, that avalim shneim b'nei elam kain echad min hakelim eino ben yoimon. If one of the kelim is not a ben yoimon, you're in luck. Miblias clear rishon, that is. As kol hakelim mutorim. Why? So the Shach, I think, explains here, or is it the Taz? I think the Taz. Why would the kelim, both kelim, be mutorim if one of them is eino ben yoimon? Because the one that's a ben yoimon absorbed the tam from a eino ben yoimon. Right? The one that is ben yoimon, it is absorbing a tam of an eino ben yoimon. The eino ben yoimon is absorbing a not bar not. Because it in itself is an eino ben yoimon. So we don't regard it as a real tam, a problem tam. So it is absorbing a not bar not. They're both being rinsed together, washed together in the same basin, the same sink. Submerged, right? But one of them is an eino ben yoimon, the other one is a ben yoimon. אבל אם שניהם בני יום ומדיח חויסום ביחד בכלי ראשון הכל אסור. ואוכי נוהגים, that's the minhag. דווקא, that they were הותחו ביחד בכלי ראשון, אבל אם הותחו זה אחר זה, dishwasher. What if they were not done together, but they were done one after another? Same day. Well, then you have an extra leniency. Since they're not together, it could be that you had a not bar not inside of any tam coming out of the walls, assuming also that it's a clear rishon, and assuming that the detergent didn't help you. You see, there's a lot of leniencies going on in a dishwasher. But it's not pashut, because you may have ba'in, maybe the dishes are not clean. To do it on the same day is not advisable. I tell people to just, if they rent an apartment and they get a dishwasher, just change the rack if they can. Once you change the rack, even though it was used for crepe, and you don't have a not bar not, so first of all, it's saying no banyoma baden, right? Whatever you had then. You want to make sure there's no ba'in, make sure it's clean. You want to rinse it. You maybe want to do one cycle, which may be a little bit of a form of hagala ke'ein, the way it was used before. Try to get a new. Same thing for Pesach. If you really, really wanted to use it for Pesach, with a new insert, you should be able to do it after you haven't used it for 24 hours. You've cleaned it very well with Ajax. You follow the various shitas that if you apply all these leniencies, then you have a better chance that this is okay to use them in the same day. It's like an oven. We spoke about an oven too. All you have is one oven. You can use it for both fleishiks and Melicha as long as you don't use it at the same time. And even if you wanted to use it at the same time, it's possible if you covered one of them with aluminum foil. In other words, there are ways around it, but it's better not to. People can make mistakes. There can be spillage, and you may not have cleaned it very well. So everybody, the psak today, a Rav will usually tell you, don't use it at the same day. Wait at least 24 hours. Whatever time is left over is pogum. Then you can use the oven even if it's not covered. What? So by dishwashers too. By dishwashers, if you want to use it for both, make sure that the flesh was rinsed well, that there's no ba'in and there's no ba'in left in the bottom. Okay? And that there's the detergent used. Then you have the various heterim, including, but not limited to, the possibility that it's a klisheni, the tam nefgam that comes about with the detergent, even though that tam nefgam may come later in the game. That's part of the problem. It's not so simple. Start squirting soap when? It's already been hot before, you see? So depending on how the dishwasher works, and I think most dishwashers, they work very similarly, there are some questions about it. But if the kelim are not exactly sitting next to each other, or in the case where it's not done at the same time anyway, it's definitely a lot better. So, you're not using it at the same time. On the contrary, you're using it at a different day. You're using detergent, and you're making sure everything's clean. It's pretty good. It's pretty okay. You can. It's not just a heter. You have a lot of who to be soymech on that. You want to use it at the same time, then it's a big question mark. So don't use it the same day. Make sure it's always clean. The dishes are clean. The racks are clean before you put it in. Make sure everything is ready to put in a Melicha, and then you may be able to get away with it, with having one dish. Lechatchila even lechatchila. Yeah.
Silly question.
All right.
Dishes are, without baking.
Right.
Why are we putting? We don't use it.
Ask your wife. I don't know.
Yeah.
We don't use the dishwasher. I have no.
Yeah, no,
dishwasher.
it's greasy.
Okay.
It just ba'in means that it doesn't have
So
pieces.
the grease is not being.
The grease is not so ba'in. No. Even though the mechaber says shuman over here, im hoyo shuman dovah bo in soshi b'mayim shisha keneged mamoshes shuman shal pia ke'ora. The question is how much shuman that is. If it's just a little bit. Again, here he's talking about for good reason. Make sure there's no shuman because you're doing it at the same time. But if it's not the same time, it may not be such a. Yeah. That's why you see that same time you're running into trouble. You may not have a not by not the hetera here. Okay, maybe it's a cliche, but you have to rely on all these heterim. Maybe it is a kli rishon, right? Maybe the detergent didn't get to it on time. Maybe there's still ba'in down in the bottom that has not become pogum and it's spritzing. So don't do it at the same time. Make sure everything is clean. Don't use it the same. Then you have various heterim to rely on. All right, Siv Dalet. Let's talk about soap and detergents here. The Mechaber says, yearly, she'im nosnu efer b'mayim chamim shebeyora, if they put ashes, that's what the word efer means, but it means a kind of an ash that's used as a detergent. If they put the ashes in the hot water of the yore of the pot, kodem sheinichu hakderot betocha, before they put the pots or pans inside, afal pisha shuman dovuk bohen, even if they had shuman, a little bit of dovuk bohen, mutar. That Yore Deah efer hu noten tam nifgam, because that efer really does a good job on the shuman. It makes it a nice tam nifgam. Now, Mechaber is very clear on how he holds. There's no Rama on this. Shach and Taz are not excited about this. That's to put it mildly. All they say is that from what they can tell, from what is written elsewhere, what they've seen, it's not so. The efer is not pogam, the mind. But they don't really give an explanation. That's what's strange here. They just say, tzorechiyun, we're not excited about it. We don't necessarily go along with this mechaber. Both of them. But they don't really give an explanation why not. Why? What's interesting is there's an interesting Chazon Ish. The Chazon Ish says in explaining the shach, you know why the afer is not poig in the water? He says, what happens when you put afer in the water? He says, let me tell you what happens. That water becomes muddy. It becomes afer water. Do you know the Chazon Ish says that all you need is to filter out with a sieve or something, a strainer, all that afer, and whatever is left behind will be fine. That afer does not accomplish pgima in whatever we're talking about. All it does is leave muddled water. Is that the word, Ilan? Muddled? Dirty? Muddled, yeah? Yeah? Says that's all the afer is doing. The shach, in other words, the Chazon Ish explaining the shach, he said, the efer is not going to create a noisem town of God. Not that the shach disagrees with noisem town of God. He says efer won't do it. Mechaber's example is of efer. And so the Chazon Ish says efer won't do it because if you were able somehow to remove the efer through filtering, you'll have whatever you had before will not be pogrom anymore. It's only because it's mixed together that it gives that appearance. Based on this, I think the Igros Moshe Feinstein, says for those who use the same sink for Melicha and Fleishik, even though there's detergent used and soaps and all of that, it's preferable, 100%, he says, the way to do it actually. Not only that it's preferable, the only way to do it, if you want to keep one kosher kitchen and have one sink, is to put some sort of insert. You know those plastic inserts where the plates do not touch the sink. Pesach too. If you have a porcelain sink that you cannot kasher, according to quite a few poskim, how do you deal with it? You either put contact paper, you wash it out clean, you clean it out very well, don't use it overnight, right? But it's porcelain, so you can't make hagala or libun or whatever to it. So you put a plastic insert. That's it. You go buy yourself a plastic insert. You've seen the plastic insert. Put them in the sink, and have your Pesach dishes not touch that sink. That's it. Says Rav Moshe Feinstein. I think he says the same idea with fleishiks and melichiks, using the same sink a whole year. Have a tabla, have some sort of plank, something. I think he means an insert there, if I recall. Have some sort of insert where the plates, either for each one, an insert for fleishiks and an insert for melichiks, so they don't touch the sink. Then you're okay. Use the same sink for both.
But the way that the soap
Yeah.
is designed,
Yes. Yeah, that's detergent. Now, the Chazon Ish is talking about the example of the Mechaber called Efer.
right?
Only.
You said that.
We didn't apply it. We didn't apply that really to detergent because detergent is going to be, we're going to soon see, is really something that will be poigim.
Detergent.
There's a difference between soap detergent and Efer.
Uh-huh.
The problem over here is Efer. The problem will be with candles of chalev. There used to be soaps or candles that were made with lard. Now, if they were made with lard and chemicals, then lard could possibly be no longer edible. But many times, I think the Vilna Gaon says, or somebody else says it in the name of Vilna Gaon, that it could be that the sabon, the borit as it was called, the soap of then, which could have been made from chalev, was not pogum enough. And chalev is really treif. So here that was a different problem. That was a problem with using, imagine, a detergent. The detergent itself is the problem. But if the ingredients are pogum, completely means that it's not roy le'achilas kelev, then it's not even a nisr. Shoe polish on Pesach. I mean, even though there may be alcohol in there, it's completely not edible even for animal consumption. The tam is not a tam. Once something becomes not roy even lachilas kelev, then it does not have a gather of tam. It does not even have a gather of tam if it becomes pogum for us, but it's still lechatchila, no good, lechatchila. In other words, you can't be pogum something lechatchila. Once something is b'di'evet, it's b'di'evet. But something that is completely no longer food, that you can do lechatchila too. That was a question of what summer is too. There's no tam. Once something has no tam, once something is rendered totally not edible at all, then it's not tam. The tam ke'iker is gone. There's no din of tam. So that was a little bit the question here regarding the mechaber. Says Moshe that of course if you have one sink, that's the best way to deal with it, 2 inserts. All right. What do we understand from Sif Dalet? Not too much. Because in Noisim Tam Lev Gam, there's really 2 possibilities. When we learned a little bit about Noisim Tam Lev Gam, we spoke about 2 possibilities. What is happening? Are we saying that we're doing something to this water that's going to render it not roy lachilas odom? In other words, the efer is poigim the tam, and therefore it would be boto beroy, it has no din tam, and there would not be a din of basar b'chalav either here. Because once the one of them does not have the tam, it does not create a proper basar b'chalav combination. It has to be that the basar gives a tam meshubach in the chalav, a good tam, otherwise it's not basar b'chalav. But there's another possibility of whether this Isser becomes nifsal me'achila altogether, and then there's no Isser whatsoever. So that, it's not clear from the Mechaber how much does the Efer help out. And it could be enough kamin in a few situations of lechatchilas and b'di'evet. Does this whole thing render it not achila, or does it just become pogum for human taste? So anyway, if you look at the Taz brings down his mashma from the Ma'aril, the soap that was made from chaylev, that it's usher. You can't use it. Shach also holds the same thing. The Tzemach Tzedek, the Chacham Tzvi, they were matir that kind of soap because it has become completely non-edible. Premier Godem holds that it's not even royal achilas kelev. So it could be that each one is talking about a different kind of soap, depending how original it is. How has it retained the original flavor, or have they really through chemicals made it something totally unedible? That's like about the soap itself, if it's kosher or not. But obviously, this kind of a detergent, regardless, was of the kashrus of it, is poigim the water. It's poigim the water, but you don't gain anything if it's still iser. Even though it's poigim the water, if it still has iser, then you have to deal with the iser. It's like using toothpaste that may have an ingredient that's not, even though you're not swallowing it. If it's a little bit edible, it's a problem. So here, your dishes are coming in touch with either on Pesach chametz dike detergent, and in Pesach we're very strict afilu b'mashu, or during the whole year with something treif. People don't think about it. They buy detergent. Maybe it has a treif ingredient, but I'm not eating it. Yeah, but your dishes are absorbing it. Oh, I didn't realize that. Yeah, but it's pogum. Are you sure it's pogum? Usually it is. Usually it is, and that's why we don't have a problem looking for an OU, a detergent. But on Pesach we're more. Yeah, it's better, of course, because in case. Yeah, good. It's even better. Yeah.
The only ones natural.
The natural ones, yeah. You're right. Chazon Ish, I don't remember if in the same Siman, but later on he talks about in his time, kosher came today, he says the detergents that they use to clean the pots, special kinds of liquids, they have humtzot. They have certain acids, and this is for sure not edible for human consumption, he says. Now, how will this help us? We're not going to put fleishiks and melicha dishes together anyway. Can we be in any way helped by these detergents other than the dishwasher? The answer is yes. Technically, if the detergent, the soap, is not royal achilas odom, but poigim the water, you would be able to make haga'olah on a kli that's ben yoima. Remember, we wait for the kli to be eino ben yoima?
Right.
So you should be nois and tam of gam. Why do we want it to be nois and tam of gam? Because we don't want the waters to be chanan. That's only, of course, to those who hold that the waters will become chanan b'shari surah. If you don't hold that, then you don't even have that problem.
But that should not do over speaking, or
Yeah. We hold right. So we are careful not to make hagol on the same day. You wait till the kli is not ben yoima. But if you can render that kli pogum, maybe you'll be able to do it on the same day. There's a whole discussion about it in the poskim I saw.
He brings the poskim that say that.
Yeah.
It says from this that it can't be with them. Because no one makes a suggestion.
Exactly. Yeah. Nobody made that suggestion.
Right.
Why not? So there are various explanations for that too. Why didn't they make that suggestion? Because obviously it usually was not done that way. But one reason really it would not be such a good idea is because there are some shitas that hold that if you're not using pure water, you can't do hagala with it.
2 steps.
Oh, very good. So some say do it in 2 steps. First make it pogum, then go ahead and make it hagala. That would work. If you had to, by the way, you can do it that way. If you had to use it that day, I would do it that way. Yeah, that's very good. And this way you don't have a problem. Very good, yeah. Sometimes klicheres, klicheres you can't make a gola. But if you made it pogum, you may be able to get away with it. The only reason why we don't do it is because what happens with klicheres or what happens with kid, we don't know. We know that the waters will become pogum. That's what Sitalit is all about. But the balua inside, when will that become pogum? When will it penetrate? So we don't do that. All right, real quick question of the Taz. The Taz asks from Siman Pei Zayin. If you remember in Siman Pei Zayin, the very beginning, where we're talking about the different kinds of basar b'chol, the Ramon brings down a case there where they used to have we call it in Spanish a palangana, a wash basin, where they used to use it for chafifat harosh. There was no showers, right? And the problem is that same, I think, wash basin, it's called in English, had basar b'chalav into it because of where it was sitting, or it was the efer. It was the efer. The ashes. They used to put ashes to make it soapy, right? We put ashes into it, and the ashes had absorbed from where they were sitting. Ashes, basar b'chalav.
Because they were going.
They were going, of course.
And the wood,
Yeah. So to use it with water for chafifat harosh, the Ramon says don't use it if you can avoid it. And the question is, the Taz says, but wait a minute, why did the Ramon tell us back then that don't do it if we have a very good excuse to do it? It's pogum.
Yeah. No, but like if they shampoo, it's not.
You don't want to have a na either from it, huh? You can't have a na. Right?
But maybe if the Thomas pogum, then maybe the other.
Pogum because it's for other things.
Right. That was my point. If it's something that you want, for whatever reason, do you still have an isser ana?
Sure.
So it's not dependent being edible as a heating process.
It may still be asur. Even though we did say something that is not qualified this time, that would not be necessarily asur ben too. But anyway, the question is really in the Ramah right here. Okay, so there's various terutzim. One teretz is look back and look clearly at the Ramah's words. All it is a chumrah there. And the Aruch HaShulchan says, you know why it's a chumrah? Because the Ma'aseh knows in Tam Rivgam. So in other words, in the bottom line is that's a good right. That is.
Says it over there.
No,
or
here. I think he says it over his. I think so. I don't remember. No, I don't remember where he says it.
So I read the other
I don't think I think he says it over there. Over there, because it's a chumrah. Why be machmer? So if anything, it's knows in Tam Rivgam, which explains it. Okay, why over there it's all it is a chumrah, but the Ramah in Achiname would agree. The Talmud works, but the second teretz I think is a better teretz. There, the Ramah is talking lechatchila, and here the Mechaber is talking b'diavad. The Mechaber didn't say here to go ahead and do it. Use soap and then put them together. No. Yirli shim nosnu. There was. Before they put the pots, what's the chiddush? The chiddush is even if the shuman double for him, because before he said, I hope you don't have shuman. Because if you have shuman, then it's not really a nat bar nat. You have shuman, you need to connect the shuman. But if you had soap, then that soap will neutralize the shuman too. But apparently he's talking on a big yagid. He would never tell you to do it. So that's a very clear difference between the din we have in Pei Zayin, using that wash basin to wash your hair. It's only a chumrah there, and that's over there. It's a lechatchila thing. Don't do it lechatchila. Here, talking about b'diavad, but if you had it, that soap will help you. Okay, just to finish up over here, there's a discussion in there's a lot of machlokes, of course, on how we hold. if we are matir b'di'evet efer, the soap that was sitting in the water, and it made it pogum. So there's a big machlokes. But anyway, it's however you hold, it's fine, because there's you have on who to rely on. But there's another diyun in the poskim. If the heter over here in Sif Dalet of Shuma of Efer only applies to the Shuman, or can it help us also with that which is the Balua in the Kli? That's a very good question, because in the example of the Mechaber we had that this can help us with the Shuman, which is a big chiddush too. It's gravy, greasy. But if it can help us with the Balua too, in other words, that soapy mixture actually somehow penetrated the plates, the bowls, and everything, then if somebody by mistake were to use that Melicha pot that had absorbed soap the following day, the same day, and use it for meat, he would be okay. Do you see? You see the question here? If soap detergent has the power to render the tam habalua in the pots and pans pogum, then if somebody took that Melicha pot by mistake on that same day, not the following day when it's already known it's done of God, on the same day, and he used it for meat, I can say, oh no, what do I do now? Oh no, but it was soapy. It was in hot soapy water, and that hot soapy water spoiled him all the way. You see? That's a good question, because here it says that the soap and detergent help us with the shuman. Anything that's sitting on top, well, that makes sense. I can see that happening. That whole shuman becomes soapy. But do we say that the soapiness and the detergent penetrates all the way to the blias of the kli? Most poskim hold it doesn't. We don't say that it goes all the way. It helps a little bit on the shuman, but it doesn't go all the way. Some say, I think it's a four-way machlekes here, there's four opinions. Some say, very interesting, you know what? You know why it doesn't help always? Because you don't know the temperature. You don't know exactly how hot was the soap. Heating and cooking and washing happens in all kinds of heat. Some hotter, some less hot. And therefore it's possible that even though soapiness has the ability of making something pogum, it just wasn't strong enough. It wasn't hot enough to enter. But if you know for sure that it absorbed it, then it for sure would be pogum. In other words, the question according to these poskim is not if soap makes blias pogum. They say soap can make blias pogum, but you have to know for sure that it actually went through all the way. And for that, it would have had to been boiling. Otherwise, who's to say that it went through? Not that it cannot make it pogum. You just don't know if it did. Some hold the opposite. They're actually more lenient with balua than they are with the ba'in, which is interesting. They hold the soap will not necessarily render anything which is ba'in, like shuman, pogum. But blias, yes. But most poskim don't hold like this third shita. And then you have the fourth svara, that they hold that everything is pogum, whether it's ba'in on top, whether it's blias, the soap goes all the way. It does a terrific job of Mr. Clean. And there's a big nafkamina, I told you. The nafkamina here would be if somebody by mistake took that pot, that Melicha pot, and used it for flesh. He made pao pan chicken or whatever, some sort of Chinese. Whatever, he made some meat dish by mistake. So it would be interesting. Did the soap make the tam, the blias, in the pot pogum? But it was that day. If it was not that day, then we don't have a question.
Would it make a difference in that to release the grease the sugar?
From where? From
the plates, from whatever.
Maybe they're stronger. Yeah, maybe they could be stronger.
Or is it different?
Because let's look at the following scenario. You raised a good point. You know what easy off is. Easy off is powerful stuff. As long as you leave it there 24 hours. But even if you leave it for less, it definitely is acidic in nature. I mean, I've seen acids. People work with tiles and cleaning tiles. There's something called muriatic acid. You better not touch it with your bare hands. That's how powerful it is. It could leave permanent marks.
I
peel everything off. What?
The white vinegar, organic type of substance with the chemical.
Yeah. So this is powerful stuff on surface. The question is, and that would be up to the experts to tell us, does it penetrate like hot boiling water can penetrate the tefanos of the kli, the walls of the kli? Does this have the power to go deep into the surface? That's a good, excellent question. I would like to know myself. Ilan, did you ever hear anything like that?
No, I haven't.
Yeah. We know what the boiling water does. That's powerful stuff. But maybe there are some chemicals that can do something similar. That's a good question. I don't know. From what we know is the surface is going to cleanse very well, but beneath the surface you may need heat.
If you could prove that it does, then
Yeah. I think so, yeah. Yeah, because that's a question of Metzias or not. This one would be a question of Metzias. Does it happen or does it not happen? Sometimes we don't know, because we don't know how hot it was, so it's our ignorance. But it's like the other sheet that said, had you known for sure that it entered, then the soap does pogum the blias. Not that it's a fact, but we don't just know how hot it was. We don't know how it was cooked. Well, then that's a question of circumstances. Anyway, just to end up, I saw interesting Ma'adane HaShulchan in trying to deal with this question of blias. He says like this, he says when dealing with blias, as far as the detergent affecting that which is absorbed, perhaps it would depend on the machloikas, on the two terutzim that were offered of why we don't go along with not bar not behetera. In the case of Toisus, in the case of where the two are being washed together at the same time. Right? Which was what the Mechaber brought down, and that was in the tour, name of his father, the Rosh, the Ramban, the Rashba. So there is a Toisus regarding that in Chulin. Toisus about the problems of having the two together, either because they are touching each other, and therefore there's no not bar not. The second not is already bisura. Or the second explanation we gave is because by the time the waters are coming out with the tam from each other, they meet. There's no tam for them to become asur. So there's no not bar not. That was the second explanation. So the Madani HaShulchan says, depending on these two, we would understand perhaps this scenario of soap in affecting the blias. It says, if you hold the reason is that they're touching each other, that they may be touching each other, so what happens when they're touching each other? One goes directly into the other. And therefore there's no not bar not. Remember that? That's the first explanation. One goes directly, they're touching. Like imagine putting a spoon and not just mixing the rice, but touching the pot. Your Melicha spoon is touching the metal pot in the bottom, which is sometimes a question. Unless you say for sure, I know it didn't touch. Because that could be a problem too. Let's say you didn't touch. You just touched the top, surface of the rice, which is parv. Or whether you touch the pot itself, then you have a problem with the spoon, perhaps much more than with the pot. But anyway,
I don't remember, what was the answer to the fact that it should have been in order to transfer?
that's in order for. Yeah, here you have roitev, right? When you have no roitev, it's not a problem because you need roitev for transfer from one klib, the blias from one klib to
But
the
if there's
blias.
a roitev, the roitev is separate between the two.
Yes.
So they're not touching?
They're not-
There was someone said that.
Yeah, but they're close enough that it's going immediately in. That was the point that was brought up by the first opinion. That they're close enough that the waters are not strong enough to deter or to hold back. The tam is going directly into the other pot through the liquid. So then, according to this interpretation of why there's no not by not, it would work too. That we would say that the afer goes directly in, the blias go directly inside. In other words, the afer goes into the blias. The ones that hold, the other interpretation that holds that the waters mix together and they don't have time to become not bar not, according to that interpretation, the afer is only poiging the ba'in. He's not able to reach into the balua. There was the Madani HaShulchan here tries to make this differentiation based on these two terutzim in Toisos, that according to the first Torah, it's perhaps that is the idea of what is happening here. Afer does have the ability to go in all the way if it's close enough. It is able to go in and therefore makes the blias pogum too. Or if you hold like the second interpretation, which by the way, the second theory is the more acceptable one, that the reason why there's no not barnat according to the Ramah, because he holds like the second, like either one, but like the second one where the two meet, and there's no time for each to become. So what that means, it's not that they can't penetrate, that the problem is that they don't become a not barnat because they meet so quickly. According to the second interpretation, therefore, the Efer does not have that power to go all the way. In other words, it's a different way of looking at the problem. Had the Efer had, in other words, had I held the first explanation, then I can say here too, if it's so close that it penetrates, well, maybe the Efer penetrates the Blias too. But if I hold like the second interpretation, that it's not that they're touching, and therefore the time is transferred immediately to the other one. The real reason is that the tamim are just meeting in the water. What that tells me is, then they're not strong enough. There's nothing there strong enough to go directly to the walls before it becomes a not barnat. In other words, the Efer cannot go as far as the Blias. So the Madana Shulchan tries to say that perhaps the resolution to that question, whether Efer does poigim the Blias, would depend how you hold. Okay, I thought that was interesting, that he applied it to the question over here. As I said, the majority of poskim anyway hold, like the second interpretation, Efer apparently does not have that koach. We don't hold that Efer has that koach to be poigim all the Blias. It would be nice if it did. And therefore, we cannot just rely on that to render the pot pogum on that day. You would have to wait for the following day. And if you didn't, you have a problem. If you cook the flesh in the middle of the pot, the soap itself will not be enough. Here, our problems in Gimel and Daled were more to do with not barnat situations, because you have the two pots, meat and milk, sitting in the same hot water, or hot water being poured on top of them. And therefore, you have waters and tamim traveling. So then, if you had Efer too, so the whole water became pogum, so the Efer Mechaber would help the Shuman on top. If there's no Shuman, the Mechaber doesn't need Efer. It's not barnat. The Ramah is the one that has a problem, because he doesn't hold of that being a true not barnat. And therefore, when it comes to a sink or a dishwasher, it becomes a problem, if they're at the same time. If they're not at the same time, then it's less of a problem. So obviously, the Mechaber's Halacha and Siv Dalet is therefore a b'di'evet. And it helps if you had Efer, because then that takes care of Shuman too, according to the Mechaber. According to the Ramah, it's not so poshut. The Efer apparently would help, but you don't have a not barnat anyway. You see? According to him. So therefore it wouldn't work. All right. It's a good place to stop.